Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first Heritage Talks Online for 2022. My name is Heather Darch, and I'm here with Glenn Patterson, and we are project directors for the Quebec Anglophone Heritage Network. I'll call it QAN from now on. Our 2022 series is called Dreaming Big, Inspiring Stories from Across Quebec's Heritage Community. In this series, we're going to explore inspiring stories from Quebec's historical societies, museums, community organizations, and cultural organizations as well. And their vision has had a lasting impact on Quebec's history and heritage. QAN is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to preserve and promote the history and heritage and culture of Quebec right across the province, but in particular of the English-speaking communities that are in our province. You're welcome to become a member of QAN, and membership is open to everyone, including heritage groups and organizations. So you can go to our website to find out a little bit more about us and how to become a member at qahn.org. Membership gives you access to a lot of interesting workshops and programs and projects and deals on books. And we also have something called the Quebec Heritage News. It's our quarterly publication, which is filled with articles and images about Quebec's history. So if you love a good story, you love to read about history in Quebec, history that you don't find in history textbooks, I encourage you to become a member and receive your own copy of Quebec Heritage News and dive right into our wonderful past, and most importantly, join our dynamic network of people and organizations who make up a great community across Quebec. For first-time new members, you can take advantage of a special 30% discount promotion for a one-year membership. That's just $20. So if you'd like to claim the discount, we have a special offer during the broadcast. You only have the 1 hour to do it. You can send us a note via Zoom or on Facebook Live that you'd be interested in becoming a member, and we'll redirect you to our website to do so. I would like to thank the funders who make this series possible, including Canadian Heritage, the Secretariat for Relations with English-Speaking Quebecers, the Chalkers Foundation, the Zeller Family Foundation, and the Townshippers Foundation. All of our presentations are recorded, so if you miss one, or if you'd like to go back to last year's presentations and see some interesting topics, you can find them on the Heritage Talks Facebook page, and you don't need a Facebook page of your own because it is a public site. So you can just go there and click on and see past episodes, and you can also see the lineup of presentations still to come and join by Zoom if you're interested. Now I'm going to pass this over to my colleague Glenn, because he'll have a few instructions for you about joining in at the end of the presentation. Hi, Glenn.
Hi, Heather. Good to have all you here with us tonight. I'm helping with the tech. I would say the most important thing is if anyone's having any issues, use the chat box to get in touch with me. So if you're new to Zoom, if you're on a computer, you'll find that down at the bottom. There should be a little box that says chat. You can type in your message. You can either send it just to me or to everyone. If you're on a mobile device like a smartphone or tablet, you may have to tap on the screen and you might see something that says more or 3 dots, and the chat box might be in there, and you can use it that way. I just want to say, and Heather mentioned the recording, this is being recorded and broadcast simultaneously. So if you're uncomfortable with that and you don't want your video or your audio, your name to be part of the broadcast and recording, you can leave the Zoom call and you can just watch on the Facebook page or our YouTube channel as well. You can look up QAN Heritage Talks, you'll find it, no problem. But, you know, there was a little message when you joined the call asking for your consent. You know, if you join the call, you consent to all this. So I'll leave that there. I would ask that you turn your videos off if you're an audience member, just to give a bit more bandwidth to our speaker. You don't have to, but it does help, and we appreciate it. So if you know how to do that, it's in the bottom left. There's a button that should say stop video. And that's all I have for now. We'll talk about the tech for the question and answer when we get there, and I'll pass it back to Heather now.
Okay, great. Thanks, Glenn. Well, our guest speaker tonight is Margaret Phillips from the heritage organization called Cantley 1889. Margaret is actually the president of Cantley 1889, a former board member of the Gatineau Valley Historical Society, and a retired teacher. Her passion for local history is inherited from her parents, Bob Phillips, the founder of the Heritage Canada Foundation, and Mary Anne Cochrane Phillips, both of whom were founders of Heritage Ottawa. She spent childhood summers in Cantley and moved there permanently in 1982 into her restored 1867 log house. Her talk this evening is called Welcome to Cantley, Down the Road Less Traveled. Hello, Margaret, and welcome to Heritage Talks Online.
Hi, Heather. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I'm going to turn the whole presentation over to you now, Margaret.
Okay, I just have to set up my PowerPoint. Thank you. Thank you, Heather. And I really appreciate Juan inviting me and to tell about Cantley history. Okay. Okay. Glenn, is it okay?
It looks good to me.
Okay. So tonight I'm going to speak on behalf of Cantley 1889, 7 board members and our 52 members. A heartfelt thank to them all and to everyone for joining me tonight. During Cantley 1889's 11-year-long journey, many people have helped with our mission to discover, catalog, protect, and promote Cantley's heritage. Cantley's heritage not only encompasses our 19th and 20th century history and its sites, it also includes that of our prehistory and of Cantley 1889, Cantley's beautiful natural heritage. And importantly, it includes the history of the first peoples who were here long before us. Cantley occupies the unceded traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin peoples. So welcome to Cantley, down this road that is not very familiar to many people. I hope you enjoy the journey. Oops. Cantley is not a village. It covers 133 square kilometers within the beautiful Gatineau Hills. On the left-hand map, the purple line indicates the extent of Cantley's area today. The Gatineau River flows south along our western border. It was once a travel route for Indigenous peoples. From the mid-1800s to 1992, the river was used for logging. Many of Cantley's earliest farms were built along the Gatineau River and extended across the river to include land on the western shore, which is today's Chelsea, the headquarters of the Gatineau Valley Historical Society and its invaluable archives. GVHS is a great friend and supporter of Cantley 1889. 20 minutes northwest of us is Wakefield, home of the Fairbairn House Heritage Center, also a good friend of Cantley 1889's. The bright green line on the map, on the right-hand map, is an old 1875 map. The green line is by no means accurate. I sketched it in to roughly indicate Cantley's one and only main road. Today, it's about 30 kilometers long from Cantley's southern boundary to its northern border. In recent years, Cantley has been one of Quebec's fastest growing municipalities. To give you an idea, 35 years ago, the population was 3,700, and today it is close to 11,000 people. We live in small housing developments or in more isolated homes scattered throughout our beautiful landscapes. This scene has not changed much since Cantley was first settled almost 200 years ago. It typifies Cantley's rolling farm landscapes nestled beneath granite cliffs and surrounded by old forests and pristine wetlands. Cantley even has 2 small mountains popular among painters for over a century, including some group of 7 artists. But time moves on, and with modern development, these landscapes are rapidly changing. The Cantley Municipal website boasts that Cantley is one of the youngest municipalities in Quebec. This is not exactly true. Cantley's settlement history is, in fact, as old as that of our neighbors, Chelsea and Wakefield. Cantley's first pioneer settler was Andrew Blackburn, who arrived here in 1829 with his two sons. Andrew built his farmhouse on the Gatineau River, and his farmland extended across the river in Chelsea. Settlers on Chelsea's west side of the river had advantages. Without a river to cross, it was much easier to travel to the nearest towns of Wrightstown, which is Ottawa, became Hull, and Bytown, which became Ottawa. In the 1800s, Chelsea had a good highway, and by 1890, a train. For Cantley people, the easiest and fastest way to get to the town south or to the logging camps in the north was to go by way of Chelsea. This is one big reason Cantley's history began to evolve differently from that of our neighbors. Because Cantley was comparatively isolated and unknown, much of its history was documented by those who did not live here, so it has some inaccuracies. A notable exception was Cantley's Irene McClellan, whose written histories are invaluable. Welcome to 1927. This is in about the center of the green line that I sketched on the 1875 map. It is Cantley's main road looking north. It was a narrow gravel road until the end of the 1950s when paving began. Cantley people always referred to it as the old Cantley Road. Behind us going south about 10 kilometers is the Alonzo Wright Bridge, which still spans the Gatineau River today. It was built as a toll bridge in 1866. During its long history, it has been frequently closed for repair or rebuilding. That's why ferry service was essential for Cantley. If you look at those two gentlemen in the photo, behind them is kind of a fork in a road. This was Ferry Road, leading to Cantley's only commercial ferry crossing the Gatineau River. The ferry traveled between Cantley and Chelsea's Kirk's Ferry, where there was access to a good highway and a train station. From 1850 to 1927, this ferry was Cantley's lifeline for goods and services not available here in Cantley, including our mail. After 1898, it was known by locals as the Paddy Fleming Ferry, after its popular and notorious ferryman. Cantley's Protestant cemetery is on that cemetery there on the left. 1927 was the dawn of the modern era. This was one of the first automobiles in Cantley, and notice the telephone poles. As for electricity, it was not available to most Cantley farmers until the late 1950s. This is ironic since Hydro-Quebec expropriated much of their farmland to build its huge hydroelectric pylons in the 1930s and 40s. You can see some small buildings at the bottom of the hill in the left corner. This is where Cantley's General Store once stood from 1862 until the end of the 20th century. Today it is Mex, a Mexican bar and restaurant. 5 years ago, Ian Tamblin was thinking about writing a play about Cantley and wanted to get a feel for the place. Ian is a renowned musician, composer, playwright, and recent recipient of the Order of Canada. His thoughts became the preface for his musical about Cantley called A Summer Affair. In it, he writes, Cantley, the town, is a place on a map, but if you were asked to pinpoint where the center of Cantley is, or was, you would be hard-pressed to find an answer. In some ways, this play could be called Finding Cantley, or Where's Cantley, or like, Where's Waldo? I sat at the New Mex restaurant and pondered this question. As I ate my taco and stared out at the snowy fields, a herd of horses turned against the wind. There was no evidence of Cantley, and yet I had been told I was at the epicenter of Cantley, on the very ground where McClellan's General Store was, near the junction of the old Cantley Road and the road to the ferry. Apparently, where I was sort of the center of Cantley, but folks will now admit there was never much of a center, more of a collection of farms where the Gatineau Hills allowed a few acres of arable land. Ian sums it all up. Cantley has never had a village or a town center. It is difficult to build communal pride or a sense of common history with no physical place to identify with. And yet, as Ian also wrote, And through all their challenges, Cantley's people had a spirited and lively sense of community, connected somehow across the network of farms and back roads, certainly not ever a village center. Cantley 1889 has learned that Cantley's hardworking farming families found creative ways to get together socially. They helped each other, sharing workload and often farm equipment. These farmers took on jobs in the mines or logging camps to supplement family income, leaving the women in charge of their farms, their families, and also of organizing social events. Helping thy neighbor was instilled in Cantley culture. Unlike many towns in the region, in Cantley, most people got along, whether you were French or English, Protestant or Catholic. Cantley's earliest settlers were from Scotland and Ireland, yet their first mayor had a Francophone name. When hard times hit, it didn't matter what your ethnic, religious, or linguistic origins were, you were there for each other. This was evident many times in Cantley's history, even more recently during the horrendous ice storm which devastated our region in 1998. But Cantley's sense of community pride and identity came to its peak in 1989. First, I'll give you a bit of background before 1889. In the 1800s, both the Cantley and the Chelsea sides of the river were under the jurisdiction of the township of Hull. In 1857, when the first post office was established in Cantley, our first postmaster named this area Cantley. Regardless of the many changes since then, the name Cantley has always remained the same for the people who live here. In 1889, the huge township of Hull was split along the Gatineau River. The Chelsea side became the township of West Hull, and the Cantley side became the township of East Hull. So January 1st, 1889 was in fact the day Cantley was born as an autonomous municipality separate from Hull and Chelsea. We held our first election and voted for our first Cantley mayor, Alexandre Prudhomme, who took office on January 1st, 1889. Fast forward to 1975. As part of the Quebec government's amalgamation plan, Cantley was merged with 6 other districts to become one large, humongous city of Gatineau. No one liked this, especially Cantley. Oops, sorry. Our unique municipality was swallowed up into a huge urban center, paying city taxes for services we did not receive and infrastructure we lacked. Our roads were in terrible condition. Our fire station was not adequate. We had no recreation facilities, and the list goes on. We were ignored and neglected. By 1983, Cantley formed a committee of volunteers led by Bertrand Boilly. It included Anglophones, Francophones, Federalists, Separatists, who were all passionate about the same cause, for Cantley to separate from Gatineau to become its own independent municipality once again. Cantley 1889 is very grateful to Monsieur Boilly, who just recently offered us the only existing documents from these years leading up to 1989. His volunteer committee spent literally thousands of volunteer hours consulting, creating budgets, producing documents, petitions, and lobbying. 1986 was the last straw. Gatineau finally noticed the pastoral landscapes of Cantley, so decided that Cantley would be the best place to create 2 new garbage dumps for all its huge big city garbage. In 1987, the volunteer committee held its own phantom election, electing phantom mayor and 6 phantom councillors. They held a public referendum for Cantley citizens. 97% voted in favor of separation from Gatineau. Oops, I'm sorry. This is when the demonstrations revved up. This one was the most publicized. We dumped garbage bags on the steps of Gatineau City Hall before a council meeting with letters to the mayor. Protests also included convoys of cars slowing down traffic to a crawl on the old Cantley Road. Finally, the Quebec government noticed us. It assigned the Giles Commission to study the troublesome situation in Cantley. Jeremy Giles recommended that Cantley should become a separate municipality from Gatineau. Cantley was the only municipality in Quebec to achieve its independence from urban amalgamation. On January 1st, 1989, Cantley's independence became official. This was exactly 100 years after we became autonomous from Hull and elected our first mayor on January 1st, 1889. Now, Cantley's 1989 Centennial Committee had been formed prior to 1989 to plan ways to commemorate Cantley's 100th birthday. It did so by writing and publishing this bilingual handbook, The History of Cantley, and distributed it to every Cantley household. Cantley 1889 has republished this book, now for sale at a nominal cost. The Centennial Committee also helped organize a Centennial Ball. It seemed everyone in Cantley was there. Both 1989 and 1889 were celebrated that night with dancing, food, and drink. Also in 1989, volunteers established Cantley's own monthly bilingual newspaper, The Echo, L'Echo de Cantley. Nowadays, Cantley's community spirit is not as apparent, with the influx of many newcomers who are not yet aware of Cantley's deep-rooted history. The events of 2009 didn't help. That year, the municipality held official celebrations for Cantley's 20th anniversary with no mention of its 120th. January 1st, 1989 had become Cantley's one and only official birthday. Cantley's earlier history had been erased from the culture of our community. But because of this, there was a silver lining. The seed was planted for the birth of Cantley 1889. In 2010, Mayor Harris reached out to 14 interested people about the idea of forming an historical society. Some were from the original Centennial Committee. We chose the name of Cantley 1889, and now you know why. It is also a name that can be used in any language. We elected a board of directors, and a notaire volunteered to register us as a not-for-profit volunteer organization. We designed a logo symbolizing the three roots of Cantley's history: the pitchfork for farming, the pickaxe for mining, and the peavey hook for logging. We decided our mandate will be to discover, catalog, protect, and promote Cantley's heritage. Our first step was to learn more about Cantley's past and the people who lived here by interviewing Cantley elders and descendants from original Cantley families. Our first public event was a scan day. In 2010, scanners were not such a common thing. We borrowed 2 scanners and set them up in the multi-purpose room of the town hall, along with chairs and refreshments. The general public was invited to bring old photos for us to scan while they told us their stories. Soon after that, we asked the Echo if it would consider donating us a page a month of its newspaper to write stories about Cantley's history and heritage. They generally offered us that, plus a volunteer French translator, so we could have 2 pages, one for each language. Cantley 1889 articles have appeared in every edition since then. We have never missed an issue. We have just submitted our 123rd article. Our articles sometimes report about our work and events, but mostly they are stories and photos that our volunteer writers have discovered about Cantley's places, people, or the way of life in bygone times. You can find most of these articles on our website. In 2012, we prepared a photo display to exhibit in the town hall entitled Pioneering Spirits of Cantley. We held a grand opening vernissage to unveil its 19 framed photos. This was our first main public event, and it was a big success. These are 2 photos of the 19 photos in the display. In 2017, we replaced this display with 16 framed photos about Cantley's mining heritage. We always invite the Cantley public to our annual meetings and events, and we usually provide homemade treats right next to a donation jar. We encourage attendees to purchase a 2-year $25 Cantley 1889 membership. Membership numbers give us credibility. Our loyal members are our strength and our motivation. Since 2012, Cantley 1889 has hosted speakers on a wide range of topics, offered guided tours of Cantley's 3 cemeteries and of its natural heritage. We have displayed historical artifacts with activities at a local school and various municipal events. Unfortunately, attendance has dwindled dramatically during the past few years. We have also worked with GVHS, Gatineau Valley Historical Society, on joint meetings and on writing projects such as the Heritage Paddle Guide and articles for Up the Gatineau, including volume 41, devoted entirely to Cantley. We participate in the GVHS Remembrance Day ceremonies, representing Cantley veterans, since they are not acknowledged in Cantley. Cantley 1889 is currently working on a project to find ways to honor them. Our board members are volunteers who spend a lot of time on day-to-day work, researching, documenting, cataloging, answering inquiries, and fulfilling requests from members, the public, and the municipality. But without a doubt, what takes most of our time and energy are our big projects, which brings me to the second reason Mayor Harris wanted to form Cantley 1889. The tugboat. Whoops. Okay. I'm sorry, something's happening with my. During Cantley 1889's battle for independence, there was a contest open for citizens to design a logo, which would also become the municipal flag. The winner was the tugboat because it was the small but strong workhorse of the river, which represents the citizens of Cantley who fought fiercely in the 1980s to achieve Cantley's autonomy. Tugboats are also part of Cantley's Gatineau River logging history. When the last logging operations ended in 1992, the tugboats were all put up for sale. The municipality decided to purchase a tugboat as a tangible symbol to match its logo. Cantley bought this tugboat in 1996 and parked it in the small Gatineau River cove on the beach below the slope of Cantley's Park, Mary Anne Phillips. It remained neglected there for 16 years. It became a mecca for vandals and graffiti artists, and also party goers at midnight. By 2011, there were complaints that an oily substance was leaking from the boat, polluting the river. The municipality had to do something. Many thought this ugly boat should just be scrapped, but Mayor Harris and Cantley 1889 thought differently. We wanted to restore and move the tugboat to a public space to represent Cantley and the river's logging heritage. This is the top of the hill right above the place where the tugboat was sitting for 16 years. With this historic view of the Gatineau River overlooking the tugboat's actual workplace, we thought it was the perfect destination for the retired tugboat's resurrection. The lucrative logging enterprises of the mid-1800s were attracted to the Gatineau River, not only for its location, but its flow was fast and powerful, so it was ideal for transporting the logs which were cut from logging camps further north. The river carried the logs south to one of the many mills along the Ottawa River, or from there by timber rafts to Montreal or Quebec City. Across the bay, the bridge-like structure you see is the Chelsea Hydroelectric Dam, stretching between the Cantley and Chelsea shores. This dam was one of 3 which permanently flooded the river in 1927, making the river much wider and as placid as you see here. The 1927 flooding submerged entire farms and shorelines forever. Part of this dam sits on a mostly submerged island, which was once the logging village of Gilmore's Mills. Later, this later became the Chelsea Island Cottage development. That whole island is now underwater today. After the river flooded in 1927, it no longer had the water power to carry the logs. That's when the first tugboats appeared. The tugboats attached great squared logs or booms together with chains. They used these to corral the logs into what was called a sack. The tugboats pulled the sacks downriver to the Chelsea Dam. The following two slides are historic since they were taken on the last day of the Gatineau River log drive. What's happened? Okay, sorry about this. So what you see here are the last logs on the Gatineau. When Gaston showed us this photo of the tugboat with the red rake attached to its bow, we were really excited. We were sure it was the Cantley tugboat. Only one tugboat in the fleet had a rake, which allowed the tug to push the logs into place. The photo shows the tugboat and the log drivers prodding the logs towards the mouth of the churning water of the log chute. When the logs reached the Chelsea Dam, they had to bypass this dam and another dam further downstream. All the logs in the river were directed into the powerful water of the log chute you see here. This log chute is one of Quebec's longest. It ran 2 kilometers along the Cantley shore, bypassing the Chelsea Dam and continuing along the shore to bypass the Farmers Dam in Limbour. Cantley 1889 made plans to relocate and restore the tugboat to its former glory. We presented our plan to council. Clearly, our project was not very popular among some councillors. However, knowing that something had to be done with the tugboat, Cantley granted us $10,000 to help take care of the tugboat problem. Our volunteers began cleaning out the tugboat. We filled dozens of garbage bags with disgusting debris, which accumulated here over the past 16 years. While we were cleaning, we found some handwritten lettering in gold paint on the chimney stack, spelling Le Champagne. We were intrigued. This had us guessing. After researching the boat's registration, we learned that our tugboat's name was indeed Le Champagne. Next, we hired an expert to pump out the contaminated oil and safely dispose of it. We then boarded up the tugboat to prevent further vandalism. Next step was to hire a water pressure company to clean it, but this could only be done on land so as not to contaminate the river. This is when we hit another obstacle. Cantley's director of public works at that time wanted to lift the tugboat onto a barge with a crane and float it to the beach near the hydro dam. A truck would then transport it to the municipal garage for repairs. This seemed to us to be a ridiculous and impossible scenario. Besides, his plan would cost tens of thousands of dollars. To make a long story shorter, we found a skillful bulldozer operator who was quite excited about the prospect of this unique assignment. He proposed that we use 2 bulldozers, and he could do this before the 2012 winter set in. So we made the courageous decision to proceed with our plan on November 27th. So here it is. One bulldozer drove into the river behind the tugboat to position its bow towards the top of the hill. We placed a few river logs in a horizontal position across the slope so as not to damage the ground underneath it. The next morning, the other bulldozer came along with chains, which it attached to the front of the tugboat. While we held our collective breath in anticipation and nervously hoping we knew what we were doing, the tugboat's ascent began. While one bulldozer pushed from behind, the other pulled it from above. We did it. In less than an hour, the cost was only $5,000. We had money left over for the cleaning and the welding. The municipality installed a safety fence while work was being done on the tugboat. We hired a welder to make a proper safety railing and to clean up any pieces of metal on the boat that might be a safety hazard for children. We then hired the pressure washer. We paid for these services with money we had left over after moving the tugboat. I am very proud to say all the rest of the work was done by our generous and enthusiastic volunteers. These are the painters. Our next challenge was how would we finance the descriptive plaques we hope to install telling about the river's history. We contacted the CLD, Centre Local de Développement, a part of the MRC, which no longer exists here. The CLD was excited about our tugboat project and offered to help with funding requests. We were granted funding for the production of 4 plaques, which turned out to be 5 plaques, and for a public celebration when our project was finished. The money had to be spent that year. Creating plaques is a tedious and time-consuming job. I don't know how we made 5 panels in just a few months. After installing them, we landscaped the area with playground grade mulch and river logs. Miraculously, we had everything ready in time for our celebration on September 14th. When it was time to cut the ribbon to officially open the tugboat, our bagpiper led everyone across the field to the tugboat. Waiting for us there were some very special people. We had managed to track down almost all the log drivers who worked on the Cantley section of the river at the end of the log drive. Most of them were able to attend our celebration. Here they are, standing on the deck of their old tugboat. I don't think there was a dry eye among the drivers or among members of the Cantley 1889's tugboat committee. This was a special reunion for them and a thrill for us. Leo Vanas, their foreman, helped unveil the plaques. For our celebration, there was live fiddle music, singing and dancing. The Lions Club organized old-fashioned games using skills a log driver might need and provided fresh popped popcorn. For children, we had a craft table and a face painter. Local artists set up displays and we displayed logging artifacts. We had 2 decorated cakes, one with the image of Le Champagne and the other with a boomful of chocolate logs. After 3 years of advocacy and hard work, our vision had become a reality. Our project was a triumph and word spread. One family donated its father's tugboat captain's papers. Another donated a tugboat compass. And the MRC sponsored this sculpture created by artist Denis Charette. It symbolizes the impact of logging on the river from Indigenous times to the end of the logging era. And then in 2015, our tugboat project inspired Nelson Lawler's donation. While working on his remote Cantley bush lot, Nelson noticed this metal cart, which was lying on its side, hidden at the bottom of a ravine nearby a small piece of rail track. He figured this was a car that was once used in Cantley's Daisy mine. The mine was on his property, but had been closed off by the Quebec government in 1989. The Daisy mine was once one of Cantley's larger and older mines of many smaller mines in Cantley. In the 1890s, the Daisy mine was mined for apatite, a phosphate mineral used for fertilizers. In the early 1900s, it began extracting mica when its use as an electrical insulator was discovered. Cantley's mines employed local farmers. Most worked in the mines to supplement their farming income. Mica is formed in shiny black layers that peel off in thin sheets. It was used during the war for electrical components in the aerospace industry, electrical insulators, spark plugs, stove doors, toasters, and it is still used today in metallic paint and cosmetics. There is a story of someone who built a house in Cantley and insulated it entirely with mica. There's another story of a small mica mine that disappeared underwater in the 1927 flooding of the river. The largest and most valuable mine in Cantley was the Blackburn mine. Its mica was in high demand because of its exceptional quality. During World War II, information about its production was top secret, so it was classified by the government. The Blackburn mine had 60 employees in its heyday. So when we met Nelson about his idea of the cart, we agreed that the Daisy mine car had a story to tell about Cantley's history. In 2015, Nelson offered to donate the mine car to Cantley on condition that it be installed near the tugboat in Park Mary Anne Phillips. The director of parks agreed on condition we make the car totally safe for a public park. The CLD enthusiastically agreed to fund its plaque. Nelson moved the mine car and its bit of track to his back garden. For safety, unfortunately, the mine car's cleverly designed moving parts had to be welded so as not to move, and the car's wheels had to be welded to the track. A Cantley 1889 car mechanic and his son, the Prudhomes, donated the use of a portable welder and their welding skills. Volunteers cleaned the car of moss and the effects of time. Moving day was on October 18th. The following winter, we collected material for the descriptive panel and writing its story about Cantley mines. Out of the blue, a gentleman who read about our project contacted us, sending incredible information from the family-owned Hamant Rotary Mine Car Company in Hamilton, Ontario. He actually identified our mine car and sent us many fascinating photos and diagrams about the manufacturing of what we then now knew was our Hamant Rotary mine car. It seems when we work on a project, people find out and contact us to share their passion and their archives with us. This is what makes our work so much fun. Again, this plaque was time-consuming work, and our graphic designer groaned because we crammed so much onto one panel, but we are very proud of it. We went back to the mine site with Nelson and loaded up several of our own vehicles with some of the rock lying around the former mine site, pieces of mica embedded in rock, and lots of pretty green, white, and white apatite, calcite, and quartz. We filled the mine car bucket with these souvenirs from Cantley's mine. For our unveiling celebration, we invited the mayor and Nelson to unveil the mine car. And for our reception afterwards, we invited former miner 93-year-old Maurice Gauthier to cut this special cake decorated with the image of the mine car. You may be wondering who the two young girls are standing beside Maurice. The previous summer of 2016, Fairbairn's Michael Cooper worked on a project with Theatre Wakefield to engage students in their local history by inviting young people to write a story, act, and produce a video depicting an aspect of their community's heritage. Michael wanted to include Cantley's youth, so he asked us for our advice. The Cantley young people decided on the historical theme of Cantley's mining, which worked out beautifully for us because this project coincided with our minecar project. So our minecar celebration also became the grand premiere showing of their video, La Mine de Mica. The students and their families were invited to attend, a win-win for all, another triumph. And now back to Theatre Wakefield and Ian Tamblyn. Cantley 1889 began a collaboration with Theatre Wakefield in 2015 to help provide a Cantley venue and promotion in Cantley for its summer touring plays, most especially for two of Ian Tamlin's trilogy of musical plays inspired by the Gatineau River. The two musicals were set in and around Wakefield and Chelsea. We persuaded Ian his third play of the trilogy should be set in Cantley. Cantley 1889 offered to help and to provide historical background. In November of 2016, Cantley 1889 organized a very special lunch for Cantley elders and members of original Cantley families. It was a really fun reunion for them, and Ian managed to get everyone talking about memorable stories, legends, and events from Cantley's past. This was a fantastic afternoon. Lucky for Cantley 1889, the play was also to be part of Theatre Wakefield's heritage animation project entitled Spread the Word. Cantley 1889 had been interviewing Cantley elders since 2010, documenting our interviews with them for our archives. Theatre Wakefield inspired us to do more of this work by providing us with strategies and writing workshops during the winter. At the same time, we dug up more historical ideas and characters that might be included in Ian's play. And we all came up with the most obvious idea for a musical play, the Cantley Picnic. From 1880 to 2004, Cantley was known for a wonderful country fair known as the Cantley Picnic. Organized entirely by volunteers, it attracted hundreds of people from as far away as Ottawa and beyond. They came for the games, contests, delicious homemade food, and famous homemade pies, live music, dancing, but mostly to have fun with friends and neighbors. Theatre Wakefield suggested that Cantley 1889 organize a special grand opening premiere for the play's first performance. So we arranged for the play to be performed where the original Cantley Picnic was held for 124 years in the field that still exists behind St. Elizabeth's Church. We asked the Lions Club to operate a stand with vintage treats, including lemonade and freshly popped popcorn. As in 2014, the Lions also organized some vintage fair games for the children. There is a scene and a song in the play swooning over the Cantley Picnic's homemade pies. So Cantley 1889 had to comply with Ian's greatest wish that we offer homemade pies at the play's premiere performance. We contacted our membership for help and received dozens of homemade pies. We lost track of how many after about 50 pies. There were long lineups at our pie booth and no pies left by the end of the afternoon. As for the play itself, here's a quote from its promotion. On Saturday, July 22nd, colorful Cantley characters will come to life at the resurrected Cantley Picnic in Ian Tamlin's latest musical play, A Summer Affair. Cantley Theatre Wakefield's professional cast will perform stories and songs that are always amusing, often hilarious, and sometimes poignant as they recreate Cantley's history. The Cantley premiere will be extra special, capturing the spirit of the Cantley Fair. It will take place at the century-old site of the Cantley Picnic, St. Elizabeth's Parish grounds. And this performance will be immediately followed by square dancing with a live band and a caller. It will tour at least 12 venues in the region during the summer. Oops. The play was a major triumph for spreading the word about Cantley's history. The Cantley Council wrote us an official letter and passed a resolution congratulating Cantley 1889. Oops. Pierre Belil is a longtime member of Cantley 1889 and an incredible photographer and videographer. A few years ago, we began working with him on a project to photograph Cantley's heritage places, which he did for the next 2 summers. Cantley 1889 helped arrange permission and visits to these properties, and we researched and documented the history of each place. This was a beautiful way to document Cantley's past. Our relationship with Pierre has evolved, and here's how. We are discouraged about declining attendance at our events, especially at our AGM in 2018, when 2 genealogists traveled here for very few participants. So we decided we would do something different in 2019, which did not impose on speakers from away. And this is it, a pop-up museum. We collected artifacts from homes and barns to put on display for an afternoon in Cantley's new community center. We created displays with well over 100 items, and of course, we had our refreshment table and homemade treats. Our displays were interactive. We printed handouts of a guessing game we had made. At each display, there was someone to answer questions. But very sadly, in spite of our efforts to promote our pop-up museum, we had very few people pop in. This was another frustrating disappointment for all of us. Our hours and hours of work seemed wasted. We did all this for nothing. Or did we? Every cloud has a silver lining. When packing up all our artifacts at the end of the afternoon, we had a eureka moment. Pierre, if Pierre would be willing to photograph the artifacts, why not turn our pop-up museum into a virtual museum? The idea doesn't seem so innovative now, but pre-COVID 2019, it seemed like a really unique and creative thing to do. One way to reach people without having to depend on their attendance on a certain day. As we mulled over ideas, we decided to integrate Pierre's photos of Cantley's historic buildings, sites, and some of his videos, as well as the artifacts from our pop-up displays. So just as COVID hit, we hunkered down to begin work. It was a lot of work, but addictive and fun, a great team effort. The entrance to our museum is on our website. Once you enter, you can click whichever gallery you'd like to visit. Cantley 1889's Vice President and Tech Wizard, Valerie, is incredible. She created a document cataloging everything in the museum with all pertinent information, descriptions, origins, and dates. By June 2020, we were ready to launch our virtual museum. Our museum continues to grow as we add new artifacts and places. We have had a lot of positive feedback, including from 2 professional museum archivists. In our museum, you will see some beautiful photos telling the story of Cantley's only Protestant church. At dawn on May 26, 2020, before anyone was aware of what was happening, our only Protestant church was demolished. This made us realize how quickly we can lose a valuable piece of our heritage. For 140 years, this was the only Protestant religious center in Cantley and also a gathering place for our rural community. There was no silver lining to this cloud, but it did motivate Cantley 1889 to research legal processes and strategies we could use to prevent further catastrophes like this one. Our most immediate concern was the Blackburn Pioneer family burial ground that still exists on the original Andrew Blackburn farm. A nearby housing development required a road to be built so close to the cemetery, we were really worried it would disturb the remains of people buried there. We spent weeks preparing the documents for a demande de citation to protect the cemetery. We submitted these documents to council in 2020. At the time, it ignored our request to meet about this, but we are hopeful our new council might be more willing. Our other goal was to build public awareness about the significance of this cemetery for Cantley and the region as being one of the oldest and largest existing family burial grounds that has at least 32 graves. This is the burial place of Cantley's first farming settler and of 5 generations of Blackburn family members, as well as a few of their neighbors. The Blackburn family in Cantley 1889 spent the past year landscaping, cleaning the monuments, and creating the cemetery's plaque, with thanks to the encouragement and funding from Kwan. We'll be forever grateful. Thank you. I invite all of you to visit the cemetery when the snow melts. You can also see the cemetery's entire story on our website and watch the short video of our lovely official plaque unveiling celebration last July. In attendance were many members of the Blackburn family from Cantley and from elsewhere too. The sounds of the Scottish bagpipes echoed through this lovely Cantley burial ground, an emotional tribute to this special place and its Scottish ancestors. This past year, Cantley 1889 established committees to take on some of the workload and responsibility from our board members. The Built Heritage Committee has done important work photographing and documenting Cantley's historically significant buildings and sites. This is Cantley's only up-to-date comprehensive inventory of these. The committee has also been developing a rapport with municipal staff, which often asks for our help. One of the committee's goals is to be consulted about issues pertaining to Cantley's older buildings before any demolition permits are issued on structures listed in our inventory. The committee is also an advocate for Cantley's toponymy. Whenever new road or park names are required, we would like the municipality to consider names appropriate for the heritage of that location. Our Sculpted Rocks Committee follows the footsteps of the Centennial Committee, which was concerned about the fate of this significant geological site in Cantley. Cantley 1889 has continued working towards its protection and its official designation. We have organized several guided tours with Dr. David Sharp, who in 1976 discovered how important this site is. The sculpted rocks were shaped during the Ice Age, partly by glaciers, but more so by fast-moving, powerful glacial meltwater rushing underneath the melting sheets of ice. Dr. Sharp saw clear evidence of this at the Cantley site, proof of a radical new geological theory of how our landforms were created. Geologists visit this site from all over the world. Some refer to it as Monument of the Ice Age. There are some other sites like this in the world, but the Cantley site is the most easily accessible. Our site is in its original pristine condition because it was buried under gravel until the 1950s. Since then, companies have been excavating the site for its gravel, revealing the fascinating rocks. You can find information and watch videos about the site by visiting our museum. Sorry. When the municipality finally purchased this land in 2020, Cantley 1889 was concerned about its plans, so met with the municipality. On its suggestion, Cantley 1889 created an action plan, which includes a vision for the site, steps to protect it, and contact information for geologists and others to be consulted before plans are finalized. A lot has happened since then, and on top of that, there was a municipal election with a whole new set of people to explain things to. The Sculpted Rocks Committee is currently planning next steps. Our plaque committee is currently working on a plaque, which will be installed in Parc de Traversier, where the Cantley ferry landing once was. This is our 8th plaque, the first one funded by the municipality. It is said that a community must understand its past in order to build a better future. Our history is the beginning of the history that is yet to happen. All of you have inherited your community's past, so please acknowledge its heritage and honor it. Cantley 1889 volunteers have worked hard to honor Cantley's heritage, and I can't thank them enough. Thank you, Quan, for allowing me to share our journey with you. And thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. Listed here are all the amazing volunteers just from the past year. And there are many, many, many more who helped us since 2010. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for being here this evening. Over to you, Heather.
Great. Oh, Margaret, this has been fantastic. What a great way to start off this series. The theme is inspiring organizations. And oh my goodness, Cantley 1889 is really quite an amazing little organization, from your scanning projects, which I think is a fabulous idea, to the pop-up museum that you turned into something else. I mean, all your projects seem to feed ideas, and isn't that wonderful? I'm really impressed with the tugboat project that turned into the mining project, you know, and the fact you're looking after natural heritage as well. And I'm just really blown away by the work that you're doing, and you should be very proud of yourself for you've captured the spirit of this community that doesn't have a center, and yet it has a big heart, doesn't it? It's
It
just
certainly does.
marvelous. Yeah. No, I think it's marvelous. And thank you so much. I mean, it's a great way to kick off our series. I think this is a great time too. I know there have been people asking questions and some people have been answering on your behalf. And so, but we'll open it up, I think, Glenn, to see if there are more questions. And I've sort of been watching the chat, and I know there was some interest in what happened to the little Protestant church and why it was taken down. I mean, that's always sad in a community to lose a place, especially if you didn't know it was coming down. You didn't even have a chance, but you've turned that into something positive. And hopefully, you know, with the municipalities, one after another, all the town councils that will come in the future, that they'll understand over time the importance of protecting some of these sites. So maybe you could start with that question, and we'll go from there. About the church, why it came down.
Oh, well, it's kind of a long story, but basically, from our point of view, the church was decommissioned and someone bought it, which is fine, you know, to give new life to old buildings. And nobody sort of really knew what was happening to it. And of course, you know, we never thought to pursue anything. Then all of a sudden, a neighbor, a farming neighbor, Bob McClellan, was up early and noticed a lot of activity that he could see going on at the church just at dawn. And he realized it was bulldozers demolishing this beautiful little building. And we were all really devastated. I mean, we were crying. It was very, very sad. There was there were a lot of reasons. The developer said it should come down, which anyhow, those are all things that don't matter anymore. But anyhow, what's happened to it since is they've just built something else exactly on the same spot, which is ordinary.
Well, like I said, you know, you took that tragedy for the building and the community into something positive to be advocates for heritage and history.
Well, it actually got us
it
got us very worried. So we started some other groups like the Outaouais Historical Society people. They helped us put us on the right track for looking into things about how we can go about protecting places.
Very good. I forgot to ask Glenn if he could just give a brief little note about how to ask questions, because there'll be people on that are old time Zoomers, but people who are new to this as well. So sorry, Glenn, I interrupted you.
All good. We can improvise, Heather. So yes, if you have questions, use the chat box if possible. So if you're on a computer, it's at the bottom. Look for an icon that says chat on it, and just type your question in there. You can type it in there and we'll ask it on your behalf, or you can just say, I have a question, and then we'll queue you up. And when it's your turn, we'll turn on your microphone and your video. And for everyone who's been in the audience, I know at the beginning, I asked people to turn off their videos if they could. You can turn them back on now. That's no problem. For people watching on Facebook, I will try to check in there and see if there are any questions. I can't make any promises. It's a lot of jumping back and forth, but I'll do my best to relay your questions. So if you're on Facebook or YouTube, type it in there and I'll do my best. So I guess I'll maybe lead with a comment. It doesn't require any reflection necessarily, Margaret, but well, one thing I noticed is how many dossiers of heritage, different types of heritage, and geological heritage. We often don't find that. And I think it's really so interesting and important, the encompassing view of heritage that you have. It's actually very progressive. You know, the idea of heritage has evolved over the last 150 years or so. What is heritage? But I think that's so amazing and inspiring. The other thing is this tension between, we think of, municipal politics and administrative boundaries as being this neutral thing, but it often entails a kind of forgetting. And sometimes it takes a while to catch up, and the efforts of people like Cantley 1889 to say, hey, wait a minute, things are being forgotten. So I just want to applaud that. So I'm going to go to the first question here. And I guess has anyone heard of Flynn's in this area, or the old Flynn farm?
The Flynn farm. I have not. Any questions about that I can't answer? You can please, we have go to Cantley 1889's email. You can get it from our website. But yes, we have experts that can help find out any information that I can't answer tonight. So thank you.
I've been to your website too, Margaret, and really enjoyed the images. Now that I know that they're from this pop-up museum as well, and the images you talked about of taking pictures of the community, are those available for people to look at as well?
That I had on my screen tonight?
Yeah, they were from
Pierre Belil's. Yes. Oh yes, they're in our museum. All of those are in our museum. So if you go to our website on the homepage, you'll see the virtual museum, and you just click on that and you go to sites and buildings and all the galleries and have fun exploring. But Pierre's an amazing evocative, his photos are very evocative. And just to speak about the diversity of what heritage is, we're actually talking to someone about a natural heritage committee. There have been a lot of things going on in Cantley recently about just our natural environment, and even a protected piece of property recently was severely jeopardized. It was scary, but you know what, my parents' generation were worried about buildings, but now, I mean, we have to also worry about keeping our environment. There won't be any left. And to me, our natural heritage is very important too, even more important for the future. Well, you said that your community is growing very quickly. And is it because it's such a beautiful area, or people coming in, or what is the draw? I think so. It was kind of unknown before, but it's much more accessible now, and there's a lot of beautiful land for sale still. It's still, it's slower than the other areas, so you can still get, I shouldn't be advertising, but you can still get nice pieces of beautiful landscape here. We do have an organization coming up later in our series protecting the Pinnacle Mountain in Missisquoi County. And it's a group like you that have realized that encroachment onto natural heritage is happening very, very quickly. And so they have formed to protect heritage, the landscape. So it's a whole other sort of issue that obviously Cantley 1889 is taking on. So well done. Thank you. There's a question about the Blackburn Cemetery. Is there a list of graves in the Blackburn Cemetery, and perhaps could they access that list from you and do some research? Yes, if you go to our website, our Blackburn Cemetery website, it doesn't list all the graves. A lot of them are still unknown. But it's a start, and if you email us, we can maybe help you, and we know some contacts for the Blackburn family too, if it's someone who's interested in genealogy or anything. There's some questions from Carol. Maybe Carol, you could just unmute and ask the questions. That might save you time typing everything out. Is that okay to do, Glenn?
It is okay. Let me just find Carol. Carol, I'm going to unmute you, but if you don't want to come on camera or anything, just click your mute button again and I'll read your first question. So Carol, I unmuted you.
Hi there, calling in from BC. So happy to be here. My mother and I are both here. Her background is Boone family, McClellan family. Her name is Jo McClellan. Here she is. I don't know if you can see her, but there she is. Oh, wonderful. Hi. Two questions. Number one, Mom is wanting to know if there's a map we can purchase or download that indicates all of the spots, the historical spots that you have presented here tonight. So a map, number one. Second question is, any chance Cantley 1889 is creating T-shirts with the logo of the tugboat and the green? Because we love it as a family and we buy like 6 of them. So another way of making money, just asking.
I think you're referring to the municipal logo.
Then that's it. If it's got
so the municipality would have to make the T-shirts.
so the Cantley one with the Pierce and the mine.
Oh yes, our logo. Yes.
Yeah. Do you do T-shirts?
We haven't done T-shirts. We've done mugs, but that's something we could look into.
Right. All right.
If you can contact us, I can maybe I could answer your questions better then.
I will. Thanks, Margaret. Thank you for tonight.
Very much, and welcome to Cantley from across the country.
It's been great.
Good.
That's great. We have a big network, don't we?
Yeah.
Now there's a question from, who was it? Hugh. Hugh has his hand raised. Go ahead.
Hubert, I'm going to unmute you, Hubert. Just give me a sec there. Oh yeah, you can also use the raise hand feature in Zoom if you know how to use it. I just unmuted you, Hubert, and then you can start your video. Just give me a second. If I can sort that out. Okay, you should see a message to start your video there, Hubert. Hey there, you're on.
Yeah, the comment that I would have to Carol Sakowski is, and I'll say hello to her mother, Joan, who's a distant cousin. We had a shirt for the organization of the Cantley of our separation from Gatineau. We did already have a shirt, the Cantley Committee, way back in 1980 and 86. But it's a good idea to have that reestablished. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, people were talking about, I have to mention about the question of the church demolition. The problem with the church demolition is due to vandalism, we had a terrible oil spill of our oil tank, and the church paid to have it fixed up, the environmental contamination cleaned up. But the Ministry of Environment put such a condition on the owner after that it would have taken an owner with an awful lot of more funds to repurpose it. And that's what happened. I blame the Ministry of Environment more than I blame my municipality, because I managed the cleanup for the church. Anyway, that's all I'll say.
Thank you, Hubert. Appreciate that perspective too. There's been such a lively discussion in the chat here on Zoom. I wish everyone could see it. There's so much information going back and forth. And so I want to thank everyone that's asked questions, but also those that have replied. And there's so many website links Valerie's posting. We'll have to go and post those on the Facebook video afterwards. So thank you, everyone that's been sharing. Are there any other questions? It doesn't look like there are any to me. Heather, do you want to take this opportunity to wrap up?
I think we will. Well, our time is coming to a close, and oh my goodness, again, Margaret, what a wonderful presentation and how inspiring. And I hope there's some other small groups out there that have been watching tonight just to get some ideas, because I'm certainly, my head's popping with ideas that our local historical society could take on. And it's this, the imagination of a few people and a lot of work, of course, but look what you've accomplished. So well done. And thank you very much for sharing it all with us this evening. For those of you that would like to tune in again for one of our talks, Heritage Talks Online, you can come and join us next week. We have a presentation with Robert Imrie and Trifona Samard from the Anshagamuk Cree Cultural Institute on Tuesday, February 8th at 7 o'clock, right here on Facebook Live. Or you can click by Zoom by going to our Facebook page and just pre-registering to be part of that. And it should be an interesting talk. They're talking, the Institute is the center of the Cree Nation, and they're talking about how they do permanent and traveling exhibits, producing theater, traveling theater groups, and the repatriation efforts to obtain their historical objects that are spread right across the world. So that's next Tuesday, right here at 8 o'clock. And again, thank you very much for being a part with us. Glenn, as always, thank you for all of your work, keeping everything rolling for us tonight. And thank you one and all, and see you soon on Heritage Talks online. Bye now.
Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you. My pleasure. Bye-bye.